Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank you for having me here. It's an honor and a pleasure for many reasons. One being because this is the place of worship of Dr. David Cody, who was my mentor and now my guiding light to help me through this journey of recovery. I'd like to briefly share with you my story of healing and redemption. I'm a little emotional because I haven't been here since her passing. So, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I was fortunate enough to have both of my parents in the household. I grew up in church, a straight-A student, and an athlete. And one thing that my parents couldn't prepare me for or couldn't protect me from was the ills of that community. The drugs, the violence, and just the whole social economic status of that community was draining. At the age of 17, I was at the peak of my life's goals and ambitions. I received 2 letters to go to college, one academic scholarship, the other one was a sports scholarship to play football. And in a matter of 48 hours, it all went down the drain. I was playing football, our homecoming game. We won, and I was sharing the stories about, going off to college, getting my family out that community, and so on and so forth, when a car drove by and shot several of us. I received 2 bullet wounds to the legs, and when I was in the hospital, they told me I'd never play football again. At that point in my life, the doctor said that I just completely blocked everything out. When I was released from the hospital, I turned my back on my family, my faith in God, everything. I just completely held on to nothing but anger. I couldn't understand why this was happening, didn't trust myself enough to talk to anyone. So I became that which I despised, a gang member. I got involved with the gang that was in my community because it was a rival gang from the community that shot me, and I fell into their indoctrination. I began learning how to manufacture and distribute drugs. That was my role in the gang, and I excelled at it. So what I thought, so much so to members of my own gang set me up to be robbed. My short-lived time in the gang, the 6 months after the shooting, I had my own apartment, car, everything I wanted. My family wouldn't take none of the money, so the members of the gang felt, I came up too early, and I wasn't really entrenched in that indoctrination enough to have such success at it. So they robbed me. Being at a point in my life where I was already angry, and then I felt betrayed, I wind up killing the 2 people that robbed me. At 17 years old, instead of going off to Penn State on a scholarship, I went to the state pen. I wound up with 2 life sentences, and I took that same attitude of anger, betrayal, and just took it in there and just did what I felt I needed to do in there to survive. I lived a life that was violent. I found ways to introduce drugs into the system, which is not easy, which was pretty easy. I won't say it was. It was pretty easy. The hardest part was getting the phones in there as time went on. We got phones, and I distribute drugs and phones in institution for years. 10 years into my sentence, my mother passed away of cancer, and my brother passed away the same day of a heart attack. He went in a room and found that she had passed away, had a heart attack, and died next to her. That completely turned my world around. I was even more angry, more confused. I at that point, totally gave up on anything good ever happening with my life. So I wind up spending some time in isolation. The guards see me as a threat, so I spent some time in isolation. And during that time, I had somewhat of an awakening. Wasn't much to read in there, either the graffiti on the wall or the Bible. So I went back to my roots and started reading. My mother's favorite scripture was the 23rd Psalms. When I read it after being in the hole for 3 months, it was like I read it for the first time. You know, it spoke to me. You know, I felt connected to her, and I made a promise that I will at least try to do better. No matter what my life turned out to be, I will at least try to do some good before I leave this world. And with that being said, short time later, I was released from AXED, which is the whole. A friend of mine's that I met in prison came and talked me into joining the college program, saying, you know what, I seen your family come visit you. I seen your mother talk to you about going back to school. So I was like, I'll give it a try. So I went and received my GED, went back to school, got in the college program, which wasn't a good thing at first because the guards didn't want us to have that kind of education in the institution, to be honest with you. So I received my AS degree, and then I got my AA degree. I still felt incomplete, though. I learned a lot about the world, history, and a lot of things, but I didn't learn about me. So I was still holding on to some beliefs, still had that anger that hasn't been processed, and the trauma that wasn't processed. It wasn't until 2008, by the grace of God, it was a program called the OMCP program that I didn't want to be involved in, that I wind up getting involved in because the same friend forced me into the program by getting me fired from my wonderful clerk job where I could have all my roaming rights. Once I went into the OCP program, you know, it took a long time for that program to reach me. It wasn't until we got the education piece was easy for me. I was always good in school. So I could always operate externally. Internally, I never did any work. So the schooling part of it was easy. The hardest part when it came to the parallel process. The parallel process was the process in which you had to do the work on yourself to be able to become a counselor and a healer and to help other people. You had to do the work on yourself so you'll know what that transition and that transformation was like. I fought it and fought it and fought it with everything I had inside until finally one day, Davida walked up to me and said, you got to be the change that you want to see. Let go of the anger. Figure it out. And I was like, who is this woman, you know, coming in and trying to tell me what to do? I survived all of this from 17 to 30. I've been in prison and I've been able to survive this without much trauma. But that hit home, you know, and then I watched, as time went on, everybody else trust the process. They talked about their upbringing, family trauma, community trauma. Some of the things really tore at my core. I was like, wow, well, I don't have, and then I started comparing. I don't have none of that stuff going on. And that kept me in another space where I still wouldn't share. And then one day, Tom had this bright idea to move us out of our comfort zone. I was always sitting in the back of the room and not really participating in the sense that when it came to things of emotional nature. Intellectually, I'll participate. Emotionally, wasn't going to happen. Tom moved me from the back to the front. No more hiding. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my change. I had to sit there and look at him and Davida every day, and then I realized, you know what? They come in here every single day, every week, give up their own self to teach us something and believe in us when majority of us didn't believe in ourselves. So I was like, I'll give it a try. And I started to share with Davida privately. She's like, no, we're not doing that. I was like, darn it. She's like, you're going to share the same way everyone else shared. You're going to share right here in this circle where they could feel your pain and see your healing just like you have experienced theirs. And doing that really changed who I was as a person. I was starting to see we was more alike than we were different. All of us was in there because we was hurting, because we've been victimized and we victimized others in return. There was a saying, hurt people hurt others. That was definitely true. And I started to think about it. The things I thought was normal was actually traumatic. You know, seeing people get robbed, killed, and everything. This was my day-to-day environment. But it was actually traumatic. And when it happened in my own household, I had to deal with family trauma that was secret that we wasn't supposed to talk about. I had a 5-year-old niece that I was supposed to be watching when I was 8. They got kidnapped, raped, and beaten, and I blamed myself. I never talked about it. The family never talked about it, but I always felt that they blamed me, so I wanted to excel in school. I found out why I wanted to excel in sports and get them away from there, because I carried the guilt and shame that I believed that if I was watching her, even though I was 8, that I could have stopped it, I could have prevented it. Carrying that trauma and that guilt really ruined my connection between my higher power and who I was destined to be. So actually having the courage to process that event and other events gave me an opportunity that education didn't. It gave me an opportunity to learn about me. It gave me an opportunity to look at my thoughts and my feelings and realize that, you know what, you could be in control of your own destiny in such a way if you just turn over your faith. You can't be the master of your own destiny if you don't have faith in your higher power. And I needed that. I needed not to be enabled and coddled. What I needed to be is checked. I needed to be called to the carpet, you know. And each time Davida came in, she'll process with other people, and she'll keep saying the same thing: be the change that you want to see. And I couldn't escape it. Every time she walked in, it was that accountability. She was the only person in my life to this day, other than my mother, who could correct my behavior with just a look. I was like, I'll be doing something in the back, and I look over and catch eyes with her. I'm like, oh, I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing that. And it was in those moments that the growth happened, that I realized I don't have to be a product of my environment. I could take the trauma that I experienced, I could take all the pain and suffering that I experienced and cause other people and make a difference. So with that, when I finally took it to heart, I went to board, and I thought I had it all together. Board is when you go to present yourself to try to get out of prison. They say it's early, but I was already 20 years into my sentence. And it was like, oh, dramatic change since the last time you came. The previous times you never even wanted to come in the room because I never had any hope of getting out. So I didn't even go. So this time they said, well, see you in 3 years. On that day, we had Martin Sheen at the program. Tom and Davida was hosting. Everybody was celebrating. I came back with a long face, with my head down, like, they told me I wasn't going home again, so I don't even know why I went, and everybody is celebrating, so I didn't want to ruin their celebration, so I started to walk towards the housing unit. And out of nowhere, I don't know how she knew, she just walked out the gate, and I happened to look back, and she waved her hand and pointed back to the building and made me face the music. So I went back in the building, and not to run anybody's time, and I told them I didn't get it, and that's the first time I experienced what I consider true empathy. It's like, it's gonna be all right, you'll get it the next time. And these was people that I've been locked up with, and there wasn't no light at the end of the tunnel. Lifers wasn't getting out at that time. And they thought, you surely wasn't gonna get out. You done sold drugs, you done sold phones, you participated in all kind of violence in prison, but they still believed that somehow that I may make it out. Then I started to believe it. After that 3-year period, after really investing in that change, I did get paroled. My family couldn't believe it. Well, hell, I couldn't believe it. And with that came a lot of fear. And a lot of fear because now when you know better, you're supposed to do better. So I no longer had the excuses. I had to stand up and be accounted for. I had to be the change that I wanted to see. So I continued to stay in the counseling field, and instead of going home to Los Angeles, where I would have to face a community that I traumatized and that traumatized me, and I had to let my family know it's in the best interest for me to come with Tom and Davida to the Options family. They couldn't understand it. They was mad. My daughter was 1 month old when I left. By the time I came home, she was already 26. She's like, and you still don't want to come with me. So you're still abandoning me. And I told her, just have faith that me making this difficult decision to come to Northern California and to continue to grow with options and let Tom and Davita guide me, it will make a difference. I can't play with my recovery because I will be not only playing with my life, I'll be playing with your life, and I have to make the hard decision. So as a result of that, I came here. I've been free of drugs, alcohol, and crime for over 10 years now, and it's been the best time of my life. One of the things I recently was proud of, because it's something I had to sit in Tom and Davita's house by her bedside, and she told me, you know what? I got one more task for you. You're going to go to school. This time you're going to really apply yourself in your education. And she made it possible. I went to school. I just received my bachelor's in social work. I'm starting my master's program. I'm the program director of Options Recovery Service. I have 2 wonderful kids and a grandchild, 2 adopted kids. No one said a lifer or a murderer could never adopt kids. I have 2 wonderful kids that I've had with me for the last 9 years, living in my home that I was able to purchase with my grandson, and being a responsible citizen and dealing with the toxic male masculinity. I tell them it's okay to cry. Tell them it's okay to process your thoughts and feelings. That's actually healthy. It's okay to let someone know that you believe in your higher power, that you have faith in God. And despite whatever obstacles and challenges come your way, that faith will get you through it. And watching them and seeing how the message is delivered to them and just letting them come into their own, I do the same in my community. So every community out here is my community. And I learned that from Davita. She said, if you see a need, it's your responsibility to fill it. So people laugh at me. Y'all get off, pull over next to the BART station and see the homeless people out there arguing and fighting. First thing I do is offer them something. Hey, I got some water, I got some chips or something in there. And then talk to them and give them my card and tell them, you know what? It's a better way. Just trust the process. Don't trust me, just trust the process. Because I know sometimes just consistently showing up and letting the person know that you're not judging them makes a big difference. And that's what happened with me. I couldn't see the person I could be, and I couldn't see my full potential until Davita and Tom saw it in me. And they put the responsibility on me to do the work. So I put the responsibility on the clients that I serve, the community that I serve, to do the work. Here's the resources. Here I am. Here we are. Don't hesitate. Come. So that's why it's so important for me to be here today. Every time I get a chance to share my experience, strength, and hope, it's an opportunity for me to continue to grow and let people know that change is possible. That you can look at someone and at their lowest point, and you could be that deciding factor for them to motivate them to get up and try one more time. And be that vessel, be that vehicle that God wants you to be to help someone else make it to a point where they need to be, where they could empower themselves to do better and be better. So I just thank you for letting me share that. And I'm really, really grateful that I'm here today. You know, I came from Antioch and it was sunny, and then I got here and it was raining. And I was thankful for it all. Then I looked back there and I felt Davita's spirit, and then I heard the song singing, and whoever was singing got a beautiful voice. The greatest love of all is learning to love yourself. It took me over 20-something years to learn to love myself. And I know how powerful that is. And it saddens me that the person who made that beautiful song, that inspirational, motivational song, stopped loving themselves. And they grew up in church too and lost themselves to their addiction. So that means that we have to continue to trust the process and pass the torch on, so we have others that hold us accountable and keep us focused and grounded and let us know that just because we arrive to one point don't mean that the mission stops or the journey stops. In order to keep what we have, you have to give it away. That's another saying that Davida had passed on to me. So with that, I'd like to thank you again for having me here, and I hope that I'll be invited again. Thank you.